Dr. Ala holds a Bachelor of Commerce, Master's degree in Quality Management, and PhD in Organizational Learning and Excellence from Salford University, UK. He's a certified EFQM assessor, licensed investor and people specialist, chief examiner and juror at several national and regional quality and excellence awards. He is the head of committee at the Egypt Excellence Government Award of Higher Education. Dr. Ala is the deputy chair of the British Standard Institution Human Capital Committee. He is also recipient of the UK Excellence Leadership Award 2021. We welcome Dr. Ala.
Thank you very much, Zainab, for the beautiful introduction, and thanks, Khawaja Saab, for the nice presentation. And I'm very pleased to be with you today. Before I start my presentation, in fact, I would like to tell you something interesting about Pakistan. I have a friend of mine who has some sort of transparency. He's not a magician or anything, but he can tell you things. And after 2 days, things happen. Okay, so I don't know how he managed to do this. So in January 22, we were chatting and he said, Ala, do you have something to do with Pakistan? I said, no, I have a couple of friends in Pakistan. They're my colleagues and a couple of students. He said, you're going to have something with Pakistan. And I said, okay, that's perfect, fine. I forgot about it. A few months ago, I changed my job and worked with a new institution to launch a master of strategic organizational learning with this college where I work now, called Al Maktoum College. And we just closed the door for applications. We received 55 students. 28 of them are coming from Pakistan. And I kept getting some offers and some things to do with Pakistan. And there is something that I end my work this year before I go to holiday in 2 days with this conference with you for Pakistan. So it's quite interesting. I am glad that I started something in January with a notion of Pakistan and now ending the last piece of work with this conference. Quite interesting. I think Zainab did a great presentation about me. So if anything I've done in my life, and I'm talking to you today, or any achievement I have done, if I would say, is just I borrow the words of Einstein because I am curious. This is the only talent I would say, or I don't know how you call it, trait, that I'm curious to learn. I'm curious to acquire new knowledge. But not only this, I am curious also and keen to make my knowledge into a product. So I'm passionate, I'm obsessed about learning and how learning can change people's life and can change companies' future and progression, and can change governments. And Khawaja Saab talked about Pakistan and as a country, as a government or as a nation, there are learning nations or learning-driven governments, which is something very interesting. And I hope this conference will be a call of action or a call for action. So I got my efforts about learning and quality crowned early this year in March, where I received the UK Headline Excellence Award from Her Royal Highness Princess Anne. And I'm always driven, and I think every presentation I do, even if it's not related directly to learning, I start with this quote from Edward Deming, the godfather of quality management. He said, learning isn't compulsory, neither is survival. So for me, learning is equally a matter of survival. And this is how we should look at it as individuals, as companies, as governments, as nations as well. I just want to remind you that there are 3 levels of learning. So it's not only about the traditional classroom training, which is fantastic, of course, but there are so many other methods related to the levels of learning. I had a stock of 20 methods published in a book called The Learning Driven Business, where I talk about different techniques for individual learning, because individuals are the learning agents of any organization. Then learning at the level of the teams, and learning, and the most important, actually, learning at organization-wide. And here we're talking about learning from customers, customer complaints, benchmarking with other companies, learning from employees, where we have suggestion scheme. So we know the very nice, job description of learning and development director or chief learning officer, which I'm very, advocate of CLO, chief learning officer, where we learn from every possible source of learning. We learn from audits, we learn from errors, we learn from non-compliance reports, and we learn from the competition as well. So please remember that there are 3 levels of learning. As my short presentation talks about opportunities, challenges, and the future of learning, which is not really that kind of future, because future is now. We are living it. So I cite these 3 notions from the World Economic Forum, that half of the employees worldwide, imagine half of employees worldwide need to be reskilled. We're not talking about the people who even lost their jobs or made redundant. If you add up this, it's a huge ratio. So half of people require to be reskilled, require to get some training and acquire new skills, new knowledge, and maybe some adaptation of attitude as well. And without really joining this vibe or this revolution of learning and development, organizations will struggle a lot to survive, especially after the pandemic. So we need really, if we were investing $10 in learning before pandemic, I think now it should be 20, because without learning, companies cannot survive, and individuals as well. How many people are losing their job and they need to change? Look into the banking sector, for example. Banking are moving to artificial intelligence and to automation. So how many people from banking sector are losing their job? It's a huge. So what they're going to do? They need to reskill. They need to get to learn new skills and new attitude. I have a friend of mine, she lost her job a few years ago, but she was so good in public speaking. She productized her knowledge. She made a course about public speaking, put it onto Coursera. She was selling it for $10. In 5 months, she sold it 55,000. So every one of us has some knowledge that others are willing to pay for acquiring this knowledge. The same story applies to organizations, to companies, profit, non-profit, and also for governments. So learning is a serious business. Building strong culture. People will not learn if they are not engaged. I believe you agree on this. If you are not engaged, remember in the school days, if you don't like the teacher, if you're not engaged in the topic, you won't learn, and vice versa. So this is the role of leaders in any organization, to make people engaged. So we need to develop the culture of learning in order to really improve the learning. I cite this from the Vice President of Talent and Development in LinkedIn, and I also cite some other facts from the famous report that LinkedIn publishes every year, the Workplace Learning. Also, it's available in the public domain. However, if you like it, I'm happy to share it. I'll put my email and my LinkedIn profile. Happy to share this with you. It's available. So the responsibility of organization, the learning has always been to help organization navigate uncertainty. And I'm sure we hear the word uncertainty several times these days. We hear the acronym VUCA again many times, and it's really ambiguous and complex world we live in. So we need to find ways to understand what are we going to do? How can we predict or foresight the future? We need to learn how to learn. So it's not only giving you knowledge and you absorb. It's not me giving you a lecture now and you get to learn from the lecture, but I'm just opening our eyes that we have to learn how to learn. It is not only the classroom training, and I'm sure my colleague, Professor Valerie, when she talks about ISO 42000, she will talk about these topics. So learning and development is not only about training. So I'm giving a quick overview here, and I cite some facts. You know, we are academics. Also, we need to go to research and use some published facts. And here I'm using the report from LinkedIn, that 74% of learning and development has become more cross-functional. So it's not setting training for audit department or HR department. We have to learn from each other. Every department in a company is an internal customer to the other department. So there should be this kind of mutual learning from or between or among departments. It is becoming more strategic. So these are the leaders of learning and development that filled in the survey for LinkedIn. 87% they find that learning is helping for change, and always the big challenge is about managing change. And it goes on. There are quite interesting figures here. But what are the areas that we need to learn? What are the main focus? You can see here on the right-hand side, it's more about leadership and management training. It's upskilling and reskilling of employees. It's about digital, and you will see in the coming slides also about importance of digital and how digital transformation is booming and how it is not a choice anymore. We have to. I mean, forget about these days where training and development and learning and development was a luxury, and we say, oh, we have budget or we don't have budget. That's finished. That's finished. It is a matter of survival now. And as I said, I'm just encourage you to read this report and to get some insights of it. There are several trends happening, but I just put here only 5 trends of learning and development. So number one, budgets are increasing 57% last year. And you can see now and relate to COVID and to the issues we had. So we need to invest in technology. We need to train our people how to absorb the learning through technology, how to improve their digital literacy. And all of these are because of the pandemic. But look at the investment in digital transformation, $1.6 trillion only in 2022. 1.6 and expected in 4 years from now to become 3.4. Serious figures. 3.4 approximately is the GDP of the UK. Embracing online learning is no longer seen as a luxury. It is a must-have. If we want to succeed, I don't think anyone do not want to succeed. So if we want to succeed, we have to invest in this. But what kind of learning as well? We need to invest in social learning, which, believe me, is an easy job. It's much cheaper than doing classroom training, but requires a lot of investment in the culture. So social learning is the bridge between knowledge and behavior. And I believe some of you may have heard about the 70-20-10 model. I know some may not agree with this model, but forgive me, I'm a strong believer of 70-20 model because we learn from each other more than we learn from the classroom training. I learn from my daughter. I learn from my boss. I learn from my employees, my colleagues, my students. I learn a lot. And that's social learning. We have to be open and have open mind to learn and to be conscious about it. We have to learn actively, to put learning in the to-do list as individuals, as companies, as governments as well. So the studies shown that 70 to 90% of learning happens informally. We may learn from a website now we share, or we learn from each other, or learn from insights around us. So it's social learning and social learning. For those of you who didn't hear about this model, it's called 70-20-10, where 70% of workplace learning happens on the job. I'll just finish in 2-3 minutes. And then 20% of workplace learning happens by watching others, and then 10% from the formal training. I know this requires a lot of empirical evidence and more research to happen. And I'm personally, with my capacity as a researcher, I'm very open. If you are interested to proceed with some research on this, I'll be more than happy. And I believe also my great colleague Valerie would be interested in this as well. The third trend here of the 5 is the bite-sized learning. We are busy, we are multitasking. We need to do many things at the same time, and the day is very short. It's only 24 hours, and we need another 24 hours to do things. So only 24 minutes a week, that's the time people devote for learning. So we have to consider this when we design project. We have to focus on micro learning to give, capsules, espresso learning, name it, whatever you like. But we have to consider how people are busy and how can we adapt and how can we use technology to help us on this. I put the link and the footnote for the details of this research. So complementing the third trend comes the fourth trend now, which is video-based learning. And we can learn a lot from watching, from visual interaction. So it is more effective 60,000 times faster than learning from text. Yeah. So goodbye to static content. Welcome to multimedia. And we have to invest on this. Good news, it is not expensive anymore. It is available, and it's not really a big deal to invest in video learning. And it's one-time investment. You're going to use it in other things. I know it's not suitable for every domain, but for salespeople, they can record their fantastic presentations, etc. The last trend here, but not least, is building learning ecosystem. And I'm very, very, very obsessed again and biased to the ecosystem, because we have to consider employees, we have to consider partners, we have to consider suppliers. We can learn from suppliers, we can learn from partners, we can learn from competition. We learn from internship students who come to sit some time in our company. So there is an ecosystem for learning, and the good two companies, if you really would like to learn more about how ecosystem works, go to a company called LL Bean. They published a lot of being a learning organization and how they get feedback from their customers. Go to FedEx, how they combine the ecosystem with their digital corporate university of FedEx. And they invest a lot in learning, not only in employees, but in their families. FedEx opened their online resources to the families of the employees. And this is why when you meet someone who works for FedEx, they are so passionate about their company. They love the company. They sing the company song because they invest in employees and in their families. And I cite here a quote from Bob Bennett, and he's available on LinkedIn. You can connect with him. These guys are so generous if you want to benchmark. If you like what I say and you are interested to learn more, I bought many of these in a book with the title The Learning Driven Business, How to Develop an Organizational Learning Ecosystem. I'm not showing off, but I'm very proud that this book has been endorsed by two of the top 50 management gurus in the world, Edward de Bono and Edgar Schein, the guru of the corporate culture. Thank you very much. I'm sorry I was quick and fast because of the time, but I'm so open for any discussions.
Thank you so much, Dr. Allah. It was a very insightful presentation and very useful to people as individuals, as organizations, or as a team, and especially with feedback being the key to any organization or any learning culture. Thank you so much.